Let me start with a question. Have you ever walked into a room and immediately felt like you needed to adjust something about yourself? Maybe the way you speak, maybe the way you introduce yourself, maybe even the way you pronounce your own name. And not because anyone directly asked you to change, but because the environment quietly suggested it. In some spaces, you feel completely comfortable being yourself. And in other spaces, you feel like you are performing a version of yourself that people find easier to accept. And over time, a quiet question begins to form. Am I actually belonging here? Or am I performing belonging? That's the conversation we are unpacking today.
You know who made
it. Welcome back to Kizito's Konversations. We name it, we unpack it, we act. I'm Wilson Kizito, and this podcast is a space where we explore identity, leadership, justice, and the systems that shape how people move through the world. In the first episode, we talked about legitimacy. That quiet pressure many people feel to constantly prove themselves. Today, we are going to go a little bit deeper because sometimes the issue is not competence. Sometimes the issue is comfort. How comfortable people feel when someone different enters the space. And that's where belonging becomes complicated. Whenever people move into new environments, new countries, new institutions, new professional spaces, there is always a period of adjustment. You observe how things work. You watch how people commute. You watch how people communicate. You notice the expectations. But there is another type of learning that happens quietly. You start observing what makes people comfortable and what makes them slightly uneasy. You notice how certain accents are received, how certain personalities are interpreted, how certain identities are perceived before a word is even spoken. And slowly, without even realizing it, you begin adjusting. Now, not dramatically, but in a subtle way. You soften certain expressions. You simplify certain explanations about where you're from. You become more aware of how your tone might be interpreted. None of these changes seem significant in isolation, but over time, they shape how you move through the world. Many people who navigate different cultural spaces understand something called code switching. Now, code switching is the ability to shift between different environments. One version of yourself with family, another version at work, and another version in professional settings. Now, sometimes this is simply cultural awareness. Human beings adapt all the time, but sometimes it goes deeper because the version of yourself that feels natural is not always the version that feels acceptable in certain spaces. So you adjust. You change the way you explain your background. You simplify your story. You become careful about how certain comments might be interpreted. These adjustments require awareness, and awareness requires energy. Sometimes these moments appear in small ways. For example, when someone struggles to pronounce your name and eventually says, "Can I just call you something easier?" And you think, my name is literally 2 syllables. But again, you smile because explaining the meaning of your name might turn a simple interaction into an uncomfortable conversation. So you move on. But those moments stay with you, not necessarily in anger, but in awareness. Assimilation is often described as success. If you adapt well enough, people say you have integrated. You have figured things out. But sometimes assimilation is simply a survival strategy. Because when you enter systems that were not originally built with you in mind, you quickly learn the rules. You learn what behavior feels familiar to others. You learn what communication style feels comfortable to the majority. And the more successful you become within those systems, the more people assume the system works equally for everyone. But success inside a system does not always mean the system itself is fair. Sometimes it simply means someone has learned how to navigate it. Constantly adjusting yourself does carry a cost. It's not always visible, but it's real. Because performance requires energy. And this energy that could otherwise be spent on creativity, on leadership, on innovation, on confidence. When people feel they must hide parts of themselves to be accepted, systems lose something important. They lose perspective, authenticity, new ways of thinking. And this creates a quiet contradiction. Many institutions say they value diversity, but sometimes they struggle with genuine difference. Real leadership requires awareness. The awareness to ask difficult questions. Who feels comfortable here? Who feels like they must perform? Who feels like they must constantly translate themselves to be understood? When leaders begin asking those questions, and in an honest manner, institutions become stronger because belonging should not require performance. Let me repeat that. Belonging should not require performance. Belonging should allow people to bring their full humanity into the room. Let me leave you with this. Adapting to new environments is part of life. Yes. Every culture does it. Every society does it. But adaptation should never require erasing who you are. Your accent carries history. Your culture carries knowledge. Your experiences carry perspective. And when people are allowed to bring those things into spaces without apology, everyone benefits. Not just the people entering those spaces. Everyone. Because strong communities are not built by forcing everyone to become the same. They are built by creating environments where difference can exist without pressure, where identity is not something you hide, but something you carry with confidence. I'm Wilson Kizito, and this is Kizito's Conversations. We name it, we unpack it, we act, and the conversation continues.
You know who made